I think there were a couple of concerns. One was, why us? Why are we writing this book? And we're explicit in saying that reparations is by nature a two-party conversation. It's, a conversation between those who owe reparations and those to whom reparations are owed. And we're very consciously speaking on one side of that. That is the first side of that, which means there are things that we must say largely along the lines of truth-telling, acknowledgement, confession, and exhortation. And then there are things that we must not say, which is, and here's what reparations ought to look like, right? And so I think that concern was one that we wrestled with early on in ourselves and heard from other people, and that is how we've answered it. Another was, does this in some ways perpetuate notions of victimization and paternalism? And as we explain, I don't think so. I think what we're talking about historical acts that have in fact taken place, that have in fact and do in fact have enduring consequences. And this is in no way to caricature African Americans as victims. It is to say that wrong has been done to them. And so we think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to talk about. Another was, are we perpetuating divisions by using racialized categories? And, as we say in the introduction, we think that the categories are not the problem, but the social realities that gave rise to those categories are the problem. And so we're using sociological categories that tragically are familiar to all of us, and we want to be explicit about that. Two more that I recall. One was about entitlement. Is this just perpetuating a climate of entitlement among African American communities? We think that to be a profoundly problematic question. But we simply say no more than restitution of any kind presumes entitlement in any sort of criminal situation, and we want to recognize that there's a thinly concealed set of racial presumptions from white folks who ask those questions about Black folks, and also a certain willingness to or unwillingness to acknowledge that the white middle class has been created by government entitlements, and that's a case that we make clear. And then, it's another one I'm sure we could talk about. The final concern was just about, which essentially coded is, are we indebted to critical theory, and have we taken that in wholesale? And we respond to that in that, and I'd be happy to elaborate on that. But those are the concerns that I remember, and I think we tried to address those, pretty straightforwardly.
Hey, thank you so much for checking out this video clip from the Delgado Podcast. To get more videos like this, simply subscribe here on YouTube. You can also download the full episode of each show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or your favorite podcast player. Take care.